What's going on, YouTube, and welcome to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte, and we need to take a look today at the Salt Lake City, Utah potential coming to the NHL. This is huge for the National Hockey League if they do indeed decide to go to Salt Lake City. This has been a conversation that's seemingly come out of nowhere, but to people that are really deep in on the conversation, they definitely understand there is definitely interest from people in Utah to bring a team down to the Utah area. So, it seems like with this whole situation around the Arizona Coyotes that a perfect relocation place for the Yotes would be Salt Lake City. And there's definitely reason to believe that, considering the Utah Jazz's ownership has also been looking at the National Hockey League for a couple years now. And we've started to see the growth of the game in Utah. We've seen a couple preseason games out there. What do they call it? The Frozen Fury or something like that. They've had the Vegas Golden Knights, the LA Kings, the San Jose Sharks all play games in Salt Lake City. And the NHL does well there. The configuration of the stadium is a little bit odd. It reminds me a lot of the Barclays Center. You have one end that is too small, so you have to kind of push the seats up, and you guys will see that in the pictures throughout the video. So there's definitely some weird shenanigans that would have to make this work, but Salt Lake City is a viable option. And what's interesting is this was all going to be on the start of the NHL looking to put a team there from the American Hockey League. And there was consideration when Seattle and Vegas, some of those Western teams came into the league, that they were definitely considering Utah as a potential opportunity. They ended up going elsewhere. Vegas went in there in Nevada, staying with Henderson. And then obviously we saw the Coachella Valley Firebirds, which one of the best names in the league. They ended up going in Nevada as well. So we're starting to see teams pop up in that Nevada area, but they haven't gone that little bit east yet. And the opportunity for a city like Utah is definitely there. And the growth of the game has definitely allowed for that conversation to continue. Now, if you look at the city of Salt Lake City, there is definitely a growing presence in Salt Lake City. Salt Lake, kind of the state of Utah has always been maybe a little bit underrated in a sense, because there's just maybe that sense that there's not enough buzz or enough population there. But that is definitely making it, this definitely moving in the right direction. You look at Salt Lake City, which is I believe the capital and most populous city of Utah. They're also the 22nd largest population in the United States. So that is definitely something that is showing a little bit of potential. They've also got BYU, the college university, not too far away. So there's definitely that sense of interest there. Salt Lake City is also becoming a stronger tourist destination with some of their, religion and skiing and things like that. They hosted the 2002 Winter Olympics, and they're also a candidate for the 2030 Winter Olympics. So that could help push the process forward to building a new arena out there if they decide to make a full new stadium, or if they decide to renovate. I think it's Trivent Arena or whatever it is there in Salt Lake City. So there's a couple of different options with the 2030 Olympic bid. That might help them if they get the funds for that. Like I said, to either make a full-on new arena in Utah or to redevelop or kind of reconfigure the Trivent Stadium or whatever that's called over there. So, like I said, there's definitely reason for belief for this franchise. We already have the Utah Jazz of the NBA. Like I said, the BYU College, the university. There's definitely some growing interest in the area. And like I said, it would be in the top 30 for the NHL in terms of populous cities. And I think that's a good thing for the game. They're trying to grow in different markets. And you kind of look at, the map of Salt Lake City. It's kind of weird with where it's laid out. But I think what's interesting for the league is this is another area in I wouldn't say the Midwest, but you get what I'm saying. It would be another natural rival for some of those teams out west. And I think it would be a really good way to add another team in the Western Conference. Now, again, there's also the conversation to be made. Do they consider putting in a new expansion, right? We always talk about Quebec or Atlanta on the East Coast, and if they want to add a team on the East Coast, you want to keep them equal on the West Coast. So the option is you can move Arizona to Salt Lake City, so you keep that Western team and you keep the conferences balanced, or you keep Arizona or move them to Houston or whatever, and then you have an expansion team for Utah, and then you have an expansion team on the East Coast, whether that's Atlanta or Quebec, and now you've got 34 teams. So you've got 17 in the Eastern Conference, 17 in the Western Conference. I think that's another really good formula that could be available at some point too. So, I think this is something that if I'm looking at the NHL with their blueprint and with where they're at, I think this is a really good sign for the NHL. And like I said, a natural rival for some of those cities on the West Coast, specifically Vegas, but even Colorado to an extent. I think this is a really interesting option that we really haven't talked much about, but I think the attention has definitely grown that way here over the past couple of months, really. And I think the ideal situation from Utah's perspective has been they would like a new arena or to renovate the arena and a brand new expansion franchise instead of taking a Arizona Coyotes type team. They want their brand new franchise. So that is something to look at. And maybe if Houston is more willing to take a relocation team, maybe it would end up working that way. But I think Salt Lake City is actually on the West Coast becoming a better option. I think Houston has been kind of lukewarm on an NHL team. As much as we all want a team out in Houston, I think the ownership hasn't been as devoted and hardcore in terms of putting a team there in the way that we've seen with Seattle and Vegas. And I think that the NHL kind of reads the room on that and is like, well, we'd like to put a team there, but if it's not 1,000% down, putting their all into it, we don't really want to go that route, especially in the beginning when there could be some rocky waters and some high tides. It's not really going to be a good option for us. And if there's something like Salt Lake City, which is much more interested and ready to give it all, they might end up going down that route instead. So I want to hear what you guys think. And also I want to hear some interesting Salt Lake City names, right? What could this new team be called? Because I think this could be kind of a weird situation where, do you name, like, you've got the Utah Jazz and they got the mountains on the jersey and things like that. Like, I'd love to see something like the Salt Lake City Mountaineers or the Salt Lake City, Mountain Goats or something kind of interesting, right? Something to do with the climate there, the mountains, the skiing, that kind of stuff. I'd love to see like the Salt Lake City Eskimos, but I don't think they'd do that. I think that, the culturally sensitive crowd may not agree with that. Even the Salt Lake City Rams, like there's different things you could do. And I want to see what you guys think in terms of names because I think it could be a pretty interesting conversation. Would they be the Utah or would they be Salt Lake City? So like, you know what I mean? Like how Arizona is the Arizona Coyotes instead of the Phoenix Coyotes. Are they going to take the name of the city or are they going to take the name of the state? So those are all things that are going to be up in the air as this conversation kind of continues. But like I said, I want to hear what you guys think. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again next time.